Hi there and welcome to the Four Lads Had a Dream podcast network. My name's Scott Paterson. You join us to discuss our of the month podcast this time. You'll remember Sheryl and I were back in August discussing all the good things that happen in August. It's our opportunity to do exactly the same now for September, and I'm really pleased to say that the full squad joined me from that Sunday show. It's Dougie, Kinnear and Sheryl who are going to speak us through, talk us through, walk us through, however we want to say it, all the good things that happened in September. Dougie, hi, how are you?
I'm very well, mate. Good to be on the Of the Month show, my first appearance. Actually, this is my first non-live podcast in 4 years. So this is a very strange feeling that we don't have the comments coming in from the listeners, from the viewers. So yeah, I'll be interested to watch this back and see everyone criticise me not live for a change.
Sheryl, the pressure's on Dougie because we done it all in one take in August, you'll remember.
We did, highly professional. And do you know what's actually lovely? I think more so, were we a bit struggling? Or we were a bit kind of 50-50 in August, weren't we? We've actually got, some quite difficult decisions to make for the month of September as well. So, yeah, not bad at all.
Do you know, you're absolutely right. I think it's, I remember when we recorded the August of the month, Sheryl, and it was very shortly after the drubbing at Celtic Park, which I think Dougie's not long said feels like it was a long time ago. That defeat, 3-0 defeat at Celtic Park, Sheryl, was a really crappy way to start off the month. But of course, if you remember right, we went straight into an international break then. So there was a lull that followed after that game, which wasn't pleasant at all, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. Although, do you know what? I think after watching that, we kind of needed it.
Yeah.
You needed just that breakaway. I remember the three of us sitting on the Sunday night trying to pick that game apart. And it was just awful. It really was. It was actually quite unsurprisingly, it was a long pod, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Dougie, I mean, same question to you. We know that international breaks are periods of time that I think that Rangers fans aren't great fans of. I certainly ain't a big fan of them. But I think for that one to come when it did, after the defeat at their place, it was a sore one because you've got 2 weeks or 10 days, however long it is, to mull over it and sort of take it to bits and work out where it all went wrong.
Do you know what's funny, Scott? Unlike Earth, Wind and Fire, not only did I not remember the 21st night of September, I remembered absolutely nothing about the month of September. See, when you sent the agenda and it said Celtic 1st of September, I was like, was that actually in September? And then, as you say, about the international break, completely forgot about the international break because my reflections then on that Sunday show are probably a little bit different to how I am now. Yeah. But the one thing I quite stand by is that game just came a little bit too soon for us. Players all just starting to find their feet. You know, I was looking at the starting 11 earlier on, and Jeffrey did start left back, but there was, Matondo at left wing, no Bayrami in the team, for example. I think that just came a wee bit too soon for us, and you're starting to see the benefits through the rest of September as we started to go on a decent run of games and performances as well. And that was always what we expected to happen when players started to get up to speed, returning from injury, new players settle in and all that good stuff.
Do you think it would be that much? Do you mind if I ask though, Scott, without taking us off at a massive tangent? Do you think it would be that different now though? Obviously it wouldn't be as bad as it was, but...
I think you've got more relationships being built throughout the squad that we didn't have then. So you think of Suter and Proper. I don't want to jump ahead, but Suter had a very good September, for example, and I don't think that's a surprise that you had that stability in defence, that you start to get the best out of players. Do I think we could beat Celtic if we played them at Celtic Park tomorrow? Right now, no. And I think the reason for that is we've still got far too many injuries. Celtic at that point had no injuries. They'd had a full pre-season with a pretty core group of players. We had the transformation. We still have too many players missing, and it's probably no surprise that in the month of September, we still tried to sign an experienced number 6. We tried to sign Davy Klaassen during the month of September and a Bosman. He chose not to come to us. I still think that we have pieces of our jigsaw that are missing that was never going to be fixed in one window. We get players to come back. I think the answer is no, but I don't think it would be as heavy a defeat or as heavy as one-sided as what it was.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think Dougie, you made a key point to start. I mean, it was the 4th game of the season or something like that, and I think you often forget about players having to develop relationships on the pitch during their job. And I sometimes think we'll lose sight of that. I think that the game did come too early for us. How it would be if we were playing Celtic tomorrow at Celtic Park, I'm probably going to take a rain check on answering that, to be perfectly frank, because I just don't know. And I've never been a great fan of going to Celtic Park or watching Rangers. And I think that's more of scar tissue, to use a popular term, of recent visits and how it's went when we went there previously. So while I'm maybe not convinced we would get gubbed 3-0, and certainly not in the fashion we did on the first day of the month, I'm not convinced we would be much more happier now than what we were that afternoon. Listen, September's been a really interesting month for Rangers. I think when you look at the results, 1-0 victory at Tannadice, 3-0 home win in the League Cup quarter-final against Dundee. Our first Europa League match day trip was one to Sweden, to Malmo, where we won 2-0. And of course, very recently we beat Hibs at home 1-0. Tom Lawrence with a wonderful goal that VAR took about 8 years to decide was actually worthy of being a wonderful goal. We can jump into each of these games individually. There's some big headlines that I really want to refer to. Don't forget, if you're joining us on the YouTube channel, please like and subscribe, comment, put the notification bell on each time we release some content. You'll get a notification and you can join us and you can check us out and see what we're talking about. We are going to tell you, each of us individually, who our player of the month is, our goal of the month, and also our moment of the month. Moment of the month wasn't something we covered in August, so I look forward to getting the guys' opinions on that, and I will, of course, share my own. Back to Tannadice, which was the first game, Dougie, out of the international break. Big game for Philippe Clement. Of course, it was the first time we've been to Tannadice in a couple of years. A couple of headlines at the start of the match was the return of Oscar Cortez. Kieran Dowell starting in the centre of the pitch out of absolutely nowhere, which I think surprised everyone, and X was awash with nonsense when that was announced, frankly. And the introduction of Humza Egeman, who I think that was the game where everyone saw a little bit more of the raw talent that we had saw very slightly a couple of weeks previously at Celtic Park.
Yeah, it was a good reaction post-international break. We obviously got the 3 points, kept a clean sheet, and it was the start of a good run of clean sheets for the rest of September. I think that was what the month of September was built upon, was starting to get that more stability at the back. And it probably isn't a surprise that we were only winning. You know, we beat Dundee United 1-0, we went on to beat Hibs 1-0. I said at the time, those were the results that was the foundation of 55 under Steven Gerrard. It wasn't the kind of the big results that wins your league titles. It's the, you know, going away to places like Tannadice, getting the 3 points and moving on. And actually, when you sit now, you kind of forget that back in the 15th of September, Dundee United were third in the league and we were fourth. They were a team on form at that point. So it was a very big game for us. The starting 11, you can even see by the fact that we're talking about Kieran Dowell starting in that game, you can still see we're still, at this point, shaping what is our strongest starting 11, and you don't start to see that until the games start to come towards the end of the month. So, you know, this is what Clement was talking about all along in terms of you need to remain patient with us. You won't see the best of us. He mentioned October. So yeah, for me that was a good return. I don't want to jump too much ahead, and I've got a point about player of the month, and the only thing I'm going to kind of touch on briefly is one player that's had a bit of stick, particularly last season, but he's kind of came in and he had a very good September. He's not my player of the month, but he's a goal scorer in that game. I thought Tom Lawrence had a good month, and that goal, given we only won 1-0, is an important goal.
Sheryl, if memory serves me right, Tom Lawrence should have had a hat-trick that day, and I think he almost said post-match when I think he was named player of the match by the TV coverage at the time, he took his goal really well in the first instance, but Dougie's absolutely right. I think it was a sign of things to come, because Tom Lawrence's September, I would suggest, was quite decent. He is the guy that's in the position of that number 10 role, if you like, just now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we touched on it last Sunday, Scott. That's 6 points that his goals have got us between the Dundee United game and the Hibs game as well. And from what I remember, we started really, really well at Tannadice, didn't we? We were really fast. We were in their faces, and some of their passing was absolutely phenomenal. And then I think it was the first 20 minutes we scored, and then I think Dundee United changed their shape slightly, and that almost sort of caught us off guard. And again, I think it's possibly me being a big fearty, but I was really worried about the game. I was worried we'd come off the international break. We'd obviously had that horrendous result at Parkhead as well. And you know what Dundee United are like. It's that kind of Aberdeen vibe of lifting their game. They want to beat us. Everybody there hates us. So yeah, I actually thought, although I was kind of living on my nerves the last 10, 15 minutes, I thought that was an excellent result.
Sheryl, that afternoon we saw Bayrami come off the bench. I think, you know, everyone expects him to be the guy that plays off of a striker. We've only very recently seen him play in that space behind a number 9, if you like. He's been someone who I think who is obviously quite new to the tapestry of Rangers. He's fitted in really quite well so far.
Absolutely. I haven't watched him, and I think he needs to be on the left at the moment. I know he's meant to be in the middle, but if the option is between him and Ross McCausland, as it was on Sunday, please, Lord, keep him over at the left.
Oh, Sheryl, don't let Alex hear you say that. You'll be devastated.
Honestly, I just plugged in next door with headphones. I love Ross McCausland, but not over. That didn't work particularly well on Sunday. But I think even the energy, the very quick, I think, was it him that Clement was talking about when he said he doesn't know, or he didn't know all of his teammates' names? There was a comment, yeah, I'm sure it was him. But, you know, he's kind of settled in extremely well. And he's made a huge impact. And I think it was him that laid the ball off for Dessers as well. The assist for Dessers' goal, was it the third goal against Dundee? That was up for excellent. Really, really good.
Dougie, and we'll just move straight into that day, 21st of September. An important day, the League Cup quarter-final, home tie, back at Ibrox. I think that moment in itself was huge. And I mean, I know we're going to give a moment of the month, and while I think that that's going to be up there for the three of us in some way, shape or form, I think getting back to your seat, getting back to see your pals, it was really important. It was a nice occasion. It was a nice day to do that.
Yeah, do you remember the 21st night of September? I'm about to start singing again.
Don't dare.
Listen, karaoke night, I'll be there. But yeah, big night being back at Ibrox. The Gifflet Loyal weren't the happiest being back, but I was delighted to be back in my seat at Ibrox. We're the holders of the League Cup, so it's one of those competitions that I want to win. Want to win them all. I went into that game confident, though. I felt that we were going to get the result, and we did. It was a good game. Tav had obviously received a lot of criticism on the back of the Celtic performance. He went on and scored a penalty. We spoke about it in the Sunday show. I felt it was a big moment. Not giving away my moment of the month. I thought it was a big moment for Tav to get that goal and then have the appreciation from the supporters when he was substituted. Dessers took his 2 goals very well. I'm not going to give away my goal of the month now, but the second one in particular was an excellent goal. But there was 2 other things in there. You know, Jack Butland made some key saves at 2-0.
Yeah. Again,
Jack Butland is another one of the players that after the Celtic game really upped his game. And that was a game for me that showed how important a goalkeeper can be, because if he's not there to make those saves, it's a very different game at 2-1. But you've mentioned Bayrami. Bayrami for me has been a huge highlight. We've had to play him left because Cortez got injured, Matondo got injured. Bayrami has settled in the month of September very well. We've not seen him play in his natural position, but I think he's looked very confident on the left-hand side, and it's allowed Tom Lawrence to get a run of games. And as I said earlier on, it's not a surprise that we're seeing the best of Lawrence now that we're seeing him get that run of games, and he's found his feet and again built those partnerships and relationships with the players around about him.
Sheryl, we've spoke previously, and I think I mentioned the term members of the support. Some people in the sport were maybe sharpening their knives a little bit. as far as Jack Butland was concerned after the second goal at Celtic Park. And I think a few people have kind of thought he's maybe taking his eye off the ball with England call-ups and transfer murmurings that went on last season. But he did make a tremendous double save at 2-0 that afternoon. Again, do you know what I mean? We've said it before, but it backs up the importance of the Rangers #1 being really, really, really good and a leader in that sort of market as a goalkeeper, because there will come a moment where you will be needed. And that afternoon, it was a tremendous double save. It really keeps us in it.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, you're right, Scott, we did touch on it in the last pod. I think that one of the big differences talking about relationships is the relationship that Butland will have now with a kind of settled centre-backs in front of him as well, Souttar and Proper. I think there's, obviously they've came on as well. We've seen that Souttar was one of the candidates for Player of the Month. And I think there's no coincidence between the three of them that they've kind of progressed together and they've kind of solidified slightly as well. I don't know if you guys noticed on Sunday, but the amount of times that Butland was going off his head at players not getting up the park quick enough as well. I like to see that. I like to see him kind of getting stuck in everybody when he needs to as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need our... And it's maybe a bit of what we've seen previously. We always need our goalkeeper to be vocal. I think it becomes more important as well, where I don't care what anyone says, out with Jack Butland, the front 10 that are playing just are not overly vocal. I think we have seen sort of Connor Barron sort of bark around a little bit and make sure people are aware of where he is, and he's asking them questions, and he's even asking questions of the captain more often than not. But I think at the same time, anyone that's played with James Tavernier, and I don't want this to turn into a Tav bashing session because it's not, but players that have played with him previously will often say he's not that kind of captain. So he's not the sort of guy that will bark instructions or have a go at someone if they make a mess of something. Whereas if there is a voice coming from you behind you and it's Jack Butland, it makes you think, oh, look, there is a leader in here somewhere that's trying to encourage us and encourage us to become better, etc. And I think if he's doing it, it means someone is. I think there's an argument if you'd like that to come from your captain or not, and it's certainly not something we will go into on this podcast. But Dougie, the importance of having someone like Jack Butland for those moments is really critical, isn't it? We've seen it with McGregor previously, and we know about Gorham and the times before where we've had goalkeepers who have had to make big saves at big moments. I know it's the League Cup final, and I know it's against Dundee, but if they score and it comes back to 2-1, return to Ibrox, fans might get a bit twitchy. It's an important save.
Yeah, and all the attributes that you're mentioning there, one of the ones that's really important as well for a Rangers goalkeeper is concentration. Yeah. Because you can go for a large period of the game doing absolutely nothing, and then you're called upon to make a save that if you can't make that save, it changes the entire game. And that's what Jack Butland is shown since he's been at Rangers. On the leadership point, though, I've always said you don't need to wear the armband to be the leader. You know, your job as the captain is when you have the armband, you're one of the leaders of the pitch on the pitch. We need more leaders, not just Jack Butland, but throughout the entire pitch. We signed guys like Proper from, I always get this wrong, but it was 20. We signed him from where he was captain. Yeah. We've got guys like Connor Barron come in who's shown that he's vocal. Even Dessers to a degree is vocal, and he's an experienced player. Around the rest of that team, we are actually, John Souttar as well was the captain of Hearts. Around the rest of the team, we're a very young team. And I think that's why we keep hearing the manager bang on about that experienced number 6, because he recognises himself that at certain points of the game, you need that leadership to dictate the game. You know, tell the players when to go forward, tell the players when to just hold possession. And the manager said it a couple of times and fans scoff, but we have lost that a little bit with Goldson and Lundstrom leaving the club, that you kind of lose that leadership. So I'm pleased to see players like Butland step up and take a bit more ownership of that leadership. I want to see more of it from guys like Souttar and Proper, and I want to see some of the young players continue to develop it of their game, like Barron. And interested to see what the future transfer windows bring as well, in terms of in January, do we go out and finally sign our experienced number 6 that the manager clearly wants.
Yeah. Dougie, I'm going to stick with you because it takes us quite nicely into the next stage. I wonder how concerned you were going to Sweden for match day 1 in the Europa League based on ghosts of Malmo previously. We know that we played them twice very recently, and both were disastrous, to be perfectly frank. For the management team at that point, generally, I didn't think they were particularly good results. I just wonder if we went over there thinking, oh no, it's Malmo again, but this Malmo team were a lot weaker than the Malmos we've played previously, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Arguably, so are we.
Yes.
If you look at the squad under Gerrard and under Walter Smith before, there isn't many players of the current team that would get into those, arguably. Yeah. That Malmo game, though, I think that was our 14th time playing Malmo. Could be wrong with the exact number, but we'd never beaten Malmo. We'd never beaten Swedish opposition. I think it was one of 3 nations that we have played and never beaten. So we don't have a good record against Malmo. Obviously, we've got real scar tissue from that game under Steven Gerrard, and I see that as a real sliding doors moment post 55 that arguably you can look back on and say that's where the turning point was, where we didn't kick on from 55. But from this season's perspective, with the new setup of the Europa League and some of the opposition that we have, when you're thinking Spurs coming to Ibrox, go down to Manchester to play Man United, we have to pick up games against the lower end of the clubs. In Malmo, for me, are one of those clubs that we had to go and pick up at least a point from.
Yeah,
and we were able to go and get the 3 points, and it set us up well for the Europa League, because I think you only need 9 points, arguably. Correct. Roughly 9 points to qualify. So that one game in match day 1 has set us up very, very well, and actually we played very well. You know, when you consider you went into that game a little bit nervous because you were up against a team that you'd never beaten before and a country you'd never beaten before, we had an excellent first half in particular. We played very well. We scored very early on, which I think calmed down a lot of the nerves. Big Dessers with the assist off the post for Barami. But there was a lot of things I liked about that. I liked Barami when he scored his goal, immediately going to the crowd. Likewise, when McCausland scores his goal, he brushed off the pools on his back to put the ball in the net. Yeah. Again, Barami's pointing him to go over to the fans. Our very own Stevie Clifford did a great clip that I hadn't really realised at the time, and when we spoke in the Sunday show I hadn't really got, but it was so reminiscent of a Stephen Davis goal against Celtic in the cup final, and it was just that kind of maiden Northern Ireland. That was a moment for Ross McCausland as well, because that was where Clement had started to pull out what the good things happens in training, because we don't see the things that happen in training. We judge the players on their 90 minutes, and when you see Ross McCausland score a goal like that, you think, great, he scored that goal. But Clement rightly pointed out that he'd done a lot of work shooting from outside the box, hitting it with his left foot. So that's when you start to see the return of all the hard work that you're putting in training. But there's a couple of other points to call out. So I think the one that I'd lastly call out is Casemiro starting at left back. That was the one kind of surprise in the team sheet. But naturally, we had Yilmaz injured and Jeffrey was suspended from his ridiculous sending off against Dynamo Kiev that cost us, and it should never have been a red card. But Casemiro came in and showed that he is a very competent player again, and that reiterates all the points that we've made previously around the summer transfer window, players needing to get up to speed. One of the things that I like about this window, and Casemiro in particular, is we've got players that are versatile. You know, he's able to play across a number of positions, and we've seen that throughout the month. Left back is not his position. I think we're going to see him in more positions. Hopefully, as we go into October, we see him potentially start right back one game and allowed to have to start to get those rests that the manager spoke about. But a real highlight for me was Casemiro come in and show that that we have actually signed well. We brought in guys like Barami that we've spoken about already, that we've seen the instant impact from. It's good to see other guys like Proper and Jeffrey. We've kind of raved about Barry. We've raved around on the Sunday show. So good to see all these new players coming in and really make their impact.
Sheryl, at 1-0, we've got a great chance in that game when Czerny goes through, and he really has to score. I think it started maybe a chain of events, if you like, or moments that I think Czerny's been very, very up and down since. That moment was a difficult one for him. He should have scored, and at that point you go 2-0 and the game was over, and Dougie's absolutely right. It adds to the fact that we had played so well, particularly in that first half, but the winger has to score, doesn't he?
Yeah, and then you know what? You fast forward, I think almost exactly a week later, and he's in a similar position against Lyon as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he does, and I know you guys will have heard him speak this week as well about just how much that played on his mind, and it was really interesting to hear that. But with reference to the chance that he missed against Lyon, obviously it wasn't too damaging against Malmo. It would have been ideal, but obviously we then had McCausland's goal. But to me, that was really interesting because we as fans do give these guys an awful lot of stick. Yeah. Do you know what? And most of the ways that people do it is quite respectful, but you do have people that will just absolutely go to town on them. And to actually hear the impact, I don't think he spoke as much about the fans, but just himself waking up in the middle of the night and seeing the chance against Lyon over and over again and thinking about it constantly. I thought that was dead refreshing to actually hear a professional footballer say that, to get that out there, that so people do realise that, do you know what, this really does have a big impact on a lot of these guys as well. And obviously it can, it'll reach a point. I think he said Clement spoke to him a lot about it. They'd done a lot of discussion around it and he'd moved on from it. But I thought that was really valuable to us as fans to hear that, you know what, this does matter to these guys as much as it matters to us as well. Because to be honest, I think I was waking up in the early hours of the morning, seeing it at different points as well and thinking, why did he not score that?
Yeah, I think, sorry, Dougie.
No, sorry, Scott. I was going to say, I think after the slow summer that we had, in terms of recruitment and moving players on, that we all wanted to see transform the club, there was a little bit of a toxic feel about the club amongst the supporters, and the game on the 1st of September didn't help when you see your biggest rivals go and take 3 goals off of us. The feeling and the mood around the stadium and around the camp hasn't been particularly positive. Unfortunately, guys like Czerny, who came in the summer with a fairly decent reputation, he's a Czech Republic international, he went to the Euros, he's had some big money moves. We expect big things from these players, but we do sometimes forget they're human. They need time to settle. That miss against Malmo was a bad one. It was a lovely ball from Bayrami. I think I feel for Czerny because we've seen things like he deleted his social media after the Lyon game, for example. And I think as supporters, because of that toxicity, we forget sometimes you're getting on these players and it's not going to help. When you get on a guy like Czerny's back, you're not going to get the best out of him. But so fair play to the manager for his man management. And I don't want to jump too much ahead, but you're seeing the benefits of that man management when you jump ahead to October and the 2 goals he eventually scores.
Yeah. I think part of the problem with Czerny was, though, he did start quite well. I remember in our initial pods, we were talking about his relationship with Tav and how much promise that had. And then you went to that game on the 1st, and he was so, and don't get me wrong, he wasn't the only one, but he was so lightweight. And the amount of times he seemed lost on the ball, and he gave the ball away. And do you know what I mean? So I can understand why people have put a lot of hope and faith in him, and then it seems like he's sort of lost a wee bit of momentum and he hasn't lived up to the early billing that we've given him. But yeah, to hear him speak like that was really, really interesting.
Czerny's interesting though, because if you look at someone, I'm going to criticise a player, right? I don't like doing this, but if you look at Ravi Matondo and you compare him to Czerny is evidently a footballer. He knows what he's doing with the ball at his feet. Sometimes Matondo looks like a sprinter that's had a football put in front of him, and he's all of a sudden realising that whilst he's running, he's still got to do something with the ball. Yeah. Czerny's actually a fairly decent technical footballer. You've seen it with his early goal when he's cutting in and he's swinging it in with his left foot. He just needs confidence. He just needs to settle. And I think sometimes you need to, it's almost like the Bayrami comment that you said earlier on, and he was still learning his teammates' names.
Yeah.
Dessers last year, when the manager said he was still building his IKEA furniture. You need to let these guys settle in sometimes to get the best out of them. And unfortunately, as a supporter group, and it's both pros and cons, because we've got high expectations at this football club. You want to start, this is a winning football club. There is no time to get up to speed, but sometimes you need to remember these guys, regardless of how old they are. They could be 19 or they could be 29. In the case of Dessers, they still need to get that time to get up to speed and learn the expectations at Rangers, playing under the pressure of the supporters, new country, new culture, new opposition, different style of football, all that stuff. So yeah, I'm glad Czerny is starting to show that in October. Hopefully he continues to build a relationship with supporters, because I think there's something missing with Czerny right now. I think it comes back to the comment you made, Sheryl, about he's a little bit lightweight. Rangers supporters like our players to be full throttle, fully committed, and that's why we've taken so well to Connor Barron. I need to see more of that from Czerny. If it's not out of possession with kind of strong physical challenges, it's in possession. I want to see him more confident, taking the ball and actually doing his thing.
If memory serves me right, Sheryl, correct me if I'm wrong, Czerny got your goal of the month for August with that goal at Motherwell, didn't he?
He did, yeah, absolutely.
So he did have a good start to his Rangers career. I'm more talking to the point you made. I felt he did have a good start to the career. So, and you're absolutely right. I think that the press conference that he's done very recently was really refreshing. I thought it was good to hear him come out and be as open and as honest as you maybe wouldn't expect a footballer in modern times to come out and be. I thought it was really quite refreshing. I'll stick with you, Sheryl. Last game that we're going to discuss in the last game of the league in September was the 1-0 victory at home over Hibernian. First league game back at Ibrox, of course. Big game, live on the telly, and it was absolutely rotten.
It was. It really was, wasn't it? I think that was the game that lucky old Dougie wasn't here for, and we had to ship poor Andrew in to sit and kind of pick through it. So nice one. In fact, we could actually put it on Dougie, I think.
Absolutely right. That's fair. Entirely fair.
Wait a minute. We should be blaming Andrew for this.
It was a strange afternoon. I think everyone that was going, you know what I mean, the stands were packed because you're back for the first league game. Tom Lawrence scores an absolute perler. VAR takes a long time. I said 8 years. I was slightly exaggerating that, of course, when they were messing around with it. It wasn't a million miles. Ian McCall scored a goal for Rangers in late, it might have been 1989. It was also against Hibs, and he curled it in just in front of the enclosure, and it wasn't a million miles different from the Tom Lawrence goal. That was the main highlight of the afternoon, Sheryl. There was the Jack Butland penalty save, which comes right in the stroke of half-time, which is crucial. And Dessers has a miss from about 2 yards in the second half, although you could argue it's a good save by the keeper. You'd expect him to score. The afternoon itself, Sheryl, there wasn't really much more to discuss, was there?
No, and then was that not the one as well where Hibs had the corner right at the end? Was that a Hibs game?
Yes.
Was that right?
Dale had that header as well.
Absolutely. Again, so it was kind of one, and it could be me being a big fearty, but right up till the last second, you were kind of living on your nerves thinking, please, because we do have this habit of only going a goal up, not being able to see teams off, and then conceding stupid goals at the back. And again, we could then maybe touch on how the defence is built. We spoke about the relationships earlier, and that's maybe part of that, because we have these clean sheets now through September. But I don't think I was thinking like that in injury time against Hibs. No, it was an absolute slog. And I can also reveal as well that as much as we've been praising Jack Butland, there is a reason for that save. I don't know if your little people are down with crystals at the moment. I don't know. This is the new thing with wee people is crystals. They're wearing crystals around their neck. And it's in other schools. It's not just my bizarre child that's wearing
Harry
this.
Potter type things.
Just little kind of pops, little crystals. But there was the rubbing of the crystal furiously as the Hibs player was going up to take the penalty, going, please miss, please miss, please miss. And then afterwards he was like, so we've got that crystal, and it also helped us as well. It was nothing to do with Clement's tactics or anything in Malmo, because the crystal was in place for that as well. Fortunately, the crystal was at the Leon game as well, but we just thought that was a wee anomaly.
That is something to discuss at the end of October, and that crystal will be getting hidden, I think, based on what we saw against Leon. Listen, before we do get into the moment that we're all waiting for, which is your moment of the month, your goal of the month and your player of the month, I must say hello to our sponsors who are looking after us all season. Black Rooster, Art of Gold, CSD Air Conditioning, Rhino Express, Clyde Joinery, and our good friends at Athol Industrial Solutions looking after us for the duration of the season and allowing us to do things like this. So we're grateful for the support between now and hopefully what will be a very successful season between now and May next year. Dougie, moment of the month for you, my friend.
Do you know, I was going to go with the James Tavernier goal against Dundee, the standing ovation he got as he was being substituted after the abuse that he got after Celtic Park. A close second for me when I was doing my notes was the run of clean sheets. So not a moment as such, but the consecutive clean sheets that we got.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to have to change it and go with just the return to Ibrox. I think the return to Ibrox will be key for us across the season. We haven't seen it in October without jumping ahead. But I think it was crucial that we get back to Ibrox. I think that's a huge moment for us.
Sheryl, same question at you, your moment of the month.
Yeah, do you know what? Mine was exactly the same. And I think it's obviously for everything that Dougie said, but it's just what you know, isn't it? Yeah. It's all the silly wee, I think I met Dougie before the game last Sunday, and it's all your wee kind of foibles around it as well. Your parking place, you're walking along the game, you're stopping for a programme, going to the Sweetie Man. We go in quite early.
And he wasn't there, Sheryl.
He wasn't there on Sunday. No, I mean, maybe it was a Subway. I don't know, but we were not pleased. We were there nice and early. We had to go and speak to Dougie as a result of him not being there.
Had
really
to.
Angry with him.
Do you know? I think these are both right. I think that the tradition of getting back to Ibrox and the way that people do their match day experience just disappeared there for 8 weeks or so. And it's hell of a nice to get back to your seat and catch up with people that traditionally you only see every other weekend. So I do think it's really good to get back to the stadium. And I have to say, and we have said it before in that Sunday show, huge kudos to it's okay to give this board credit back and forward. The new area that's been set aside in the Copeland Road stand looks absolutely fantastic. And if you're in and around that area, I'm sure you're getting the benefit of that. So well done to the board. I know there's noise around the background of how long it take them and issues with steelwork, etc. But the finished article looks the berries. So well done to them. I should say my moment of the month is the Jack Butland penalty save against Hibs. I enjoyed it because of when it happened in the match, the reaction from Jack Butland, I think, said a lot. He was evidently very pleased. Saving a penalty for a Rangers goalkeeper is a huge deal. You might not see the ball again for another couple of games. So to make that penalty save in the fashion he did and to celebrate in the way he did, you could argue it was a rotten penalty, but Jack Butland has to save it. And he does it. If we go in at half time and they're at a turn to Ibrox, one each, conceding a penalty so close to half time, I think it's a different 45 in the second half, to be perfectly honest with you. So that was my moment of the month.
And Scott, he had his foot in the line as well.
Absolutely right. You're as well doing it properly, Dougie, if you're going to do it at all. Do you know what I'm saying? You're as well doing it right. It's all about the training.
Will you get a crystal the next?
We're not going to go and get crystals right on next year. Stop trying to forget it.
If it works, we might get to the page where we're all sitting here with his and her crystals on.
I'm getting a picture for you. Vegetarian crystals.
I know.
Stop there, because I know what you're
speaking no further.
I know what you're going to say next.
Sheryl, we'll go straight on to you, and it's goal of the month. And I think we've had a relatively decent selection of goals to choose for from September. So I'm interested to know what you go for as your goal of the month.
I'm going to go for one that we discussed earlier for the reasons we discussed. And I've got a horrified housemate who says it's the worst of all the goals that I could have picked. But I'm going for Tom Lawrence's goal against Dundee United for all the reasons that we spoke about earlier. We'd come off that hiding at Parkhead. We were all fed up. We came off the international break. We were still fed up. We were going up to Tannadice, which out with, a few games, it has been at times been quite a difficult place for us to go. Yeah. And we were still at the stage where we had we kind of still are now, where we had no idea what we were going to get. So to start as well as we did, Tom Lawrence was hit and miss. He was absolutely horrendous in that Old Firm game as well. So to see him start well, and the passing football, but even the way that he took his goal as well, because he had a fair bit of work to do and he had a few defenders around him as well. The strength that he had to take the ball on the run, and it was a dead composed finish as well. And like I say, 6 points from his 2 goals as well. So although it's probably not the nicest of all the goals that I could have picked from, that was definitely my goal of the month.
Yeah, good goal, good afternoon, a good move. I think it's fair to say, and it was something we needed. I think you're absolutely right. It was relatively early on that afternoon as well, which I think we needed after the 2 weeks away and what had happened previously. So it was an important goal. I absolutely give you that. Dougie, same to you, your goal of the month for September?
Yeah, you said earlier on that we had options this month, and Sheryl's gone for the Tom Lawrence goal at Dundee United. The club have went for the Tom Lawrence goal against Hibs. I am going different. I'm going for the Dessers goal against Dundee. I thought the ball in particular from Bayrami was inch perfect, but I thought the finish from Big Dessers was tremendous. So I'm going for the Dessers goal.
And of course, if you remember right, I think we spoke about it on that Sunday show, the similarities between that goal and the goal that Michael Moll scored against Celtic. I think it was in 1999. The similarities were incredible, to be perfectly honest with you. The Bayrami assist for that is outstanding. It's real quality, isn't it?
Yeah, I genuinely think that's a quality finish from Dessers. The first goal that he scored that day is very much what he's good at in terms of penalty box striker. The second one showed that wee bit of class that Dessers does have in his locker and just needs to produce a wee bit more consistently in the big games.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. My goal of the month was McCausland in Malmo. I enjoyed that goal. I think because, listen, you know, Ross McCausland is a bit Marmite. I think it's safe to say some people really like him, some people don't like him so much at all. I think he took that really, really well. It showed he was harrying to try and get the ball. He took the opportunity when it came to him. It's on his weaker foot. You know, let's be honest, it's absolutely on his weaker foot. And it was good to see him celebrate, etc. Sheryl, I'm almost certain in your property, it was a really pleasing night for the wee fella. I would enjoy that, did you not?
Yeah, absolutely loved it. But you know what? We watched it again tonight.
On repeat.
As we have every other night. You can see the strength that he has as well, because you can clearly see his shirt being pulled.
Yeah.
But he just brushes him off. It was an excellent goal, and I was delighted for him as well.
Yeah, 100%. Dougie, the club voted Connor Barden as Player of the Month for September. I actually didn't think his September was half as good as his August, personally. I'm really interested to know who you go for as your Player of the Month for September.
I went Connor Barden. Do you know, my memory's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. So I'm thinking this back with probably a different lens in the moment. There's certainly some honourable mentions: Butland, Suter, Lawrence, for the moments that we've spoken about already, the 2 goals, that arguably he's won his 6 points with the fact that there was 2 1-0 games. I was very close to saying Tom Lawrence, but I went Barron because I think he just deserves recognition, because when he's came in from Aberdeen, he's a young lad. I think he came in, most supporters were expecting to come as a squad player, and he's came in and he's the one who, in the middle of the park, is the guy that you look at expecting to be in the starting 11 every single week. And I think that's testament to how well he has settled. I also have in my head that he was in the Scotland squad for the first time in September. Yes. He's not in it in October, he's in the under-21s for October, but I just had it because I thought that was a good reflection of his contribution to the club over the period. And I've gone Connor Barron.
Sheryl, same. I mean, last month in August, we both said that Connor Barden was streets ahead of anything else we were seeing in the blue jersey. I think that's still quite fair. I do think his September, he wasn't as good as the August. Who's your Player of the Month for September?
Right, I've gone different. I've gone for Jefty.
Yeah.
I've gone for Jefty because we just his consistency. What I think is excellent, and it was only when I kind of looked back across the month, the amount of different partners that he's had. Do you know? And the way, McCausland aside, and we discussed that earlier, that just wasn't something that worked on Sunday. But if you think that very early on, he kind of got a very quick and a very good relationship, as much as anybody can, with Matondo. Yep. He linked up very well with Matondo, and then Cortez before he was injured. But even Bayrami as well, and I know we're dying to see more of Bayrami in that 10 role, But just going on Sunday, I actually thought that Bayrami was better out on the left, and they seem to have gelled very, very quickly together as well. I think he's excellent at pushing up. We got used to, after kind of prime Barisic, we got used to going so far, stopping Barisic, passing to the side Barisic, or passing back Barisic.
Yeah.
But somebody that, you know, that can just get down that flank and get, I know his crossing's a wee bit hit and miss sometimes, but he's getting those balls in, picking up a lot of stray balls as well and kind of turning them into attacks. So, and also I think, am I right in thinking that when we first started, it was Ridvan at left and they pushed him up slightly?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what's going to happen with Ridvan. Nobody knows when he's back. I know he's back in training. But I would also be interested to see, because I know there's been a wee bit of criticism about Jefty as a defender. I don't know what we're going to do with Ridvan, but I would be quite interested to see maybe if he puts Ridvan in at left back and pushes Jefty up a wee bit to see how that works as well, because he seems to be one of those players that just fits in wherever you put him and gels pretty quickly. For a guy that young as well, to come in a club the size of ours and to make that impact, I think he's done really, really well. And I haven't seen somebody look that good with a moustache in a long time.
She's obviously not seen Tom Selleck, that's all I'm saying.
I know.
Before my time, Dougie.
What was that?
Before my time.
Before your time, he's a gentleman.
Magnum, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, I for what it's worth, I think Jefty's had a fantastic September. I really do. I think he's been really, really good. I like his endeavour. I like his effort going forward. I think that you're looking at a guy that's developing the defensive side of his game. However, you show me a young fullback anywhere in the world who is a great defender, and I would say you're a liar, to be perfectly frank with you. I think many of them now are being taught that trait of being almost a wing back. Do you know what I mean? Have the ability to move forward at pace and be a threat in the final third, which is important. I think Jefty's been fantastic in September. My player of the month for September has actually been John Souttar. I think he had a really good September. I think you're seeing huge changes in the way he's playing now that he can play on the favoured side of a duo. I think when we seen him previously, we always saw him playing on that left-hand side beside Goldson, which clearly wasn't a role I don't want to say he wasn't comfortable with, but it wasn't the role that he would want to play if he's playing as a two there. I think he looks an entirely different defender playing closer to James Tavernier on the right-hand side. I'd love to know actually what James Tavernier thinks playing alongside John Souttar as having him inside as opposed to having Connor Goldson, because we know that Goldson and Tav were close and they played a huge amount of games together. But I think John Souttar in that role has been really, really good. And I think similar to Connor Barden, I think he got a Scotland call-up in September as well. I can't remember, but it was certainly on the sheet for that. Listen, that just about wraps us up. We're now, as we record this now, we now know we're into October, and it seems only right that we end with speaking about Clement's comments, what feels like years ago now, when he said, "Judge me in October." Dougie, we're here. Are we in a better place or not?
I'm going to say yes, because I think you're starting to see the best of some players right now, like Bayrami, that I've mentioned already. I think a lot of people are in my opinion, being a little bit hyperbole around the Lyon game.
Yeah.
I think we've got to remember the standard of opposition. Lyon are a very good side with some very good players who have spent a lot of money in this summer and have a high squad valuation. I think there's no shame in the defeat to Lyon, and it wouldn't surprise me if we have another couple of defeats in the Europa League against potentially Spurs and Man U, because they are above us in terms of where we're at right now.
Yeah.
I just want to see us continue to put a run of performances together in the league, and October has a very big game at Pittodrie to finish it off.
Yeah.
And that's when I'll be judging this Rangers team and the manager, because that's going to be a test of the character of everyone involved. Can we go up to Pittodrie? It's a tough place to go, and get a result against a team that is very much in form.
Sheryl, do you think, but we come on sort of making that October comment, judge me in October, people are almost waiting for something to go wrong to say, oh, you said we'd be better now and we're clearly not. And it's about getting that balance must be really difficult as Rangers manager, because what you say is instantly logged onto people's brains and people take it on board. And while I'm about with you, Dougie, I actually think we are in a better place now as we move into October, and as the month progresses and November progresses, you would like to think that you see relationships, which you spoke about earlier, blossom and get a bit better. Sheryl, I wonder where you are on the development of where we were to where we are now.
Yeah, do you know what? I just think that we're so impatient, and I understand why we're so impatient, but I think he has such a big job, such a big project, rebuild, whatever you want to put it, however you want to put it. I think that he's maybe been slightly hasty in terms of giving October as this date, bearing in mind that I think we'd also have mentioned previously, I think we're another at least one, if not two, possibly three transfer windows away from being exactly where we need to be. So perhaps if he'd even worded it as, you know, come October, you'll see a lot more progress, or you'll see clear progress, or you'll see the beginnings of where I want to be, then yeah, absolutely, I'm with you 100%. I just think he's got such a big job on his hands, even with the squad. But you add to that then all the stuff around the club as well, the stadium, everything that we spoke about in earlier pods. I just think he's got an awful lot to deal with. And he seems to be dealing with it pretty well. I know there's a lot of talk about his tactics as well, his unwillingness to change formations. But to me, it looks like he's got a very, very clear plan, and he needs these players to mould into his formation. He's not willing to change it. We kind of know that now. So I think, yep, there's absolutely been progress, possibly not as quick as we all want it and we all need it to be. But I just think with the scale of job that he's got on his hands, it was never, ever going to be as quick as we want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Sheryl, good having you on. I've enjoyed your September assessment. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dougie, same to you. It's been good to have you on in September.
Thank you very much. And I didn't even get my Green Day joke in as well, but I got my Earth, Wind and Fire, and I'm going to go for my next topical one as well. So I'm going to say thank you, Scott. Thank you, Sheryl. Thank you to the listeners and the viewers. And thank you to Beyonce. Do you
Beyonce?
Get that?
No.
Come on, you're clearly in a different TikTok algorithm than what I'm on right now.
See, stuff like that's all in the delivery, Dougie, and if you get it wrong, I mean, come on.
One person's going to watch this and go, I get that joke.
No, it is.
Everyone else, the other 4 people that's going to listen to this are going to be like, I don't get that at all. So,
goodness me. Thanks for watching and listening. Don't forget, if you're not following us across our social media, you know exactly where we are. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and comment and get the notifications on. So anytime we fire out any content, you will get a notification when we are back on. That Sunday show returns in a couple of weeks' time. And until then, goodbye for now.
Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clyde Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, along with Art of Gold. Thank you for listening or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.